Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about the 1961 B-movie horror film The Beast of Yucca Flats. The movie begins with a young woman drying herself off after a shower. She then gets choked to death by an off-screen attacker. The film's focus then switches to Soviet scientist Joseph Dvorsky. Dvorsky has just defected from the Soviet Union and has arrived in the United States with a briefcase containing various military secrets, including information on a secret Soviet moon landing. Now remember, this movie was made 8 years before the actual moon landing, so if the Soviets had achieved such a feat, it would have been a huge development in the space race. Unfortunately, Dvorsky's escape from the Soviet Union was not as successful as he believed. He and his American security team come under attack from a pair of KGB assassins. Dvorsky's bodyguards are all killed in the ensuing gunfight, but the scientist himself manages to flee into the Nevada desert. It's really not Dvorsky's day, though, because his escape route inadvertently takes him deep into an area that was irradiated by nuclear weapons tests. The radiation destroys Dvorsky's mind, turning him into a mindless beast with an uncontrollable urge to kill anyone he happens to encounter. Now, you might think, well, given that he's in an isolated and irradiated part of the Nevada desert, that wouldn't be many people, but apparently the radiation made Dvorsky an excellent walker, even as it rotted his brain, because he soon manages to find potential victims aplenty. First, a couple in their car, then a vacationing family. The authorities are soon on the search for this rampaging murderer, but can they stop him before the would-be vacationers end up in the morgue? So the real-life Yucca Flat has been called the most radiated nuclear-blasted spot on the face of the Earth, and there's good reason for that. From 1957 to 1992, it was the site of over 800 nuclear detonations. And the site's reputation was so fierce even by the late 50s that actor Coleman Francis penned and directed this film off the back of it. Francis landed former wrestler Tor Johnson, best known these days for being one of Ed Wood's regular cast members, to play the title role, and acquired financing from Anthony Cardoza, who was a welder by trade. According to Cardoza, the movie was shot piecemeal from weekend to weekend, with the entire filming schedule stretching to perhaps a year or more. This approach allowed the cast and crew to maintain their day jobs, which was important because they certainly weren't being paid much for this movie. Despite the length of the project, the estimated cost of the film was minuscule, somewhere around $34,000. Not a lot of money, even back then, for a movie. Now, Francis and Cardoza made 2 more pictures after this, but all 3 of their films faded into obscurity until the mid-90s, when they were featured on the TV show Mystery Science Theater 3000. There, they earned infamy for their poor production values, meandering and incomprehensible storylines, and stilted acting. And their infamy is deserved, at least based on this movie. I've watched some pretty bad films in my time, but this one is something special in the bad mistakes. Let's talk about how. So you may remember that I started my summary of the film by describing a scene with a young woman drying herself off after having a shower, and how she then got choked to death by an off-screen attacker. You may also have forgotten all that, because I never mentioned the young woman or her murder again, and it had no bearing on anything else that happens in the movie, which is why I didn't mention it again. So, in that case, why is the scene even in the film? Well, according to an interview with financier Anthony Cardoza, it's for the most obvious and banal of reasons. Coleman Francis liked naked ladies. Now, I suspect that Francis may also have hoped that wedging this more graphic and prurient scene, we get a little bit of nudity here, right at the start of the film, might trick audiences or people looking to purchase the film to show at their cinemas into thinking it was a racier, more risque film than it was actually going to be. Because it's safe to say there's nothing remotely sexy at any other point in this movie. It all just feels very cynical to me, a cheap and tawdry trick. Also cheap and tawdry is the film's approach to sound. Now, most movies have their actors perform their dialogue while filming, and then, where necessary, which it often is, because you get interference and other things happening while you're filming live, they have the cast come into the studio afterwards to deliver lines again in a post-production environment where everything is nicely controlled, and then they sync up that clean studio audio with the footage that they previously recorded. Now, The Beast of Yucca Flats has no time for such things, or the money, probably. Instead of going to all that effort and expense, Francis decided on a much simpler solution: never show a character's mouth when their dialogue is being spoken. When a character speaks in this movie, it's always from off-screen, or in a shot where we can only see them from the neck down, or from so far away we can't make out their face. And in the few instances where we can see an actor's mouth moving, we never hear their character's actual dialogue. Instead, a narrator speaks over the top of their silence, telling us what's being said or done. Now, that's far from the only time we'll hear the narrator, mind you. In fact, he's almost omnipresent, talking over pretty much everything that happens. Sometimes this is to explain things that aren't readily apparent from the visuals, which I guess at least serves a purpose, even if it's bad filmmaking. But other times, he's just telling us things we can already see, or he's offering up random and irrelevant insights, such as vacation. People go east, west, north and south. Well, I mean, thanks for that insight, film, I guess. Now, if that narration sounds pretty incoherent, well, the plot is even more so. A significant part of the story is driven by the presence of a massive near-vertical cliff face that stymies the authorities' efforts to pursue the irradiated Jaworski. Now, first of all, why is there a massive near-vertical cliff face on Yucca Flats? The name of the place ought to be a hint about the kind of terrain it has. Second, why are the officers, both of whom are young and fit, unable to scale this cliff? Jaworski managed it, he's much older and in much worse shape, and was carrying an unconscious woman at the time. Also, 10 minutes later, 2 kids will successfully climb it as well, so they can be in a position for Jaworski to menace them. So, old men and kids can do it, but 2 healthy cops in the prime of life? Nah, too hard. Just as incoherent is the action scene choreography, which features one of the most boring car chases ever put on film, and then a gunfight that is somehow even more stilted and awkward. A particular highlight is when one of Jaworski's bodyguards runs out of bullets and the KGB assassins sportingly allow him to slowly reload his weapon and start firing again, all the while standing up in full view without any cover from them before they finally plug him. I mean, this is truly an astonishingly badly made film. And if you're at all into astonishingly badly made films, you probably need to see it just to be amazed, but otherwise, stay well away. Next time, Gonzu wire fu action from Hong Kong in the form of the 1993 fantasy martial arts film The Heroic Trio. But that is next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you've seen The Beast of Yucca Flats, well, firstly, my condolences. And secondly, let me know what you thought of it.